Joining us now is Article 3 Project founder, President Mike Davis. Mike, it's great to see you. So when Justice Jackson, when she was first nominated, there was a lot of criticism that she lacked enough judicial experience, particularly compared to some of her colleagues. She even admitted that she had a limited or lack of experience interpreting constitutional texts under her testimony during her confirmation hearing. So is that what we're seeing here? Just a lack of experience and a lack of constitutional knowledge?
Well, I think she has a lack of good judgment. She was a district court judge for many years on the D.C. District Court. President Biden elevated her to the D.C. District or D.C. Court of Appeals just for a minute before he nominated her to the Supreme Court. But as I said back then, if you are 6 Republican seats and 3 Democrat seats, you would want to put someone in that Democrat seat who's going to build bridges and maybe pick off one of the justices like Barrett or Kavanaugh or the Chief Justice. I think Justice Jackson's approach actually repels them.
Mike, can I ask you about a different part of her dissent? And this came up in the birthright citizenship case, which actually didn't decide that issue, but talked about the power of the lower courts, because you bring up that she was a district judge. She fights for that power for the district judges, basically saying that they have the pulse of what's happening on the ground, and it's important to include them in the process, but essentially giving district court judges that kind of power rewrites, I mean, it sets precedent in case law, and it rewrites the Constitution. The opinions are at odds with the Constitution. That's the Supreme Court's job. That's not their job.
Yeah, I don't remember Justice Jackson calling for activist Republican judges to stop what President Biden was doing for 4 years. This is purely a partisan power move by Justice Jackson. She wants 800 district court judges around America to effectively have veto over the will of the American people. And we elected the President of the United States with a broad mandate to reduce the federal government, to secure our border, to expel these terrorists. It's these judicial activists, these Democrat judges who are sabotaging the will of the American people.
Mike, we also want to get you on this. So the Justice Department sources telling Fox that some of the head honchos of the Russiagate regime are now under criminal investigation. Former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey. The current CIA Director, John Ratcliffe, referring evidence of wrongdoing to FBI Director Kash Patel, which sparked the probe. President Trump commented on it today.
I think they're very dishonest people. I think they're crooked as hell. And maybe they have to pay a price for that. I believe they are truly bad people and dishonest people. So whatever happens, happens.
But Brennan, well, he thinks that Trump needs to just let it go. Listen.
Move on, get over it. But clearly, Donald Trump, believes that this is something that I think continues to need to be looked at and criticized. But again, I stand behind the assessment.
So, Mike, we're still learning the details of the full scope of the criminal investigation, but Fox reported that 2 sources described the FBI's view of the duo's interactions as conspiracy, which could open up a wide range of potential prosecutorial options. What would that conspiracy be, and what does that mean for Brennan and Comey?
I've been saying this for years, going back to the Mar-a-Lago raid, the unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful raid on the office of former President Trump for presidential records he's allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act. You had the Obama White House, President Obama, Vice President Biden, the Attorney General, the FBI Director Comey, the CIA Director Brennan, and many others. They made up the Russian collusion hoax against President Trump. They got an illegal spy warrant on him by lying to the FISA court. They continued to spy on him when President Trump was the president of the United States. This is an obvious criminal conspiracy against rights under 18 USC Section 241. And I would say to Mr. Brennan, nobody's above the law, so you better lawyer up, buddy.
Mike, I want to switch topics for a moment because Biden's former doctor, Kevin O'Connor, decided to plead the fifth rather than answer questions about the former president's mental fitness at the time that he was in the White House. A lot of people have questions about who was running this country. To me, I would say If he was completely fit, then you could just sit there and say that. If you're pleading the Fifth, you have something to hide.
Yeah, he definitely has something to hide, because even as a doctor with a doctor-patient relationship where you can have confidential communications, even with a doctor with a patient, you're not violating HIPAA by answering some of these questions. This guy basically gave his name and would not answer essentially any other question pleading the Fifth Amendment. If you've done nothing wrong, if you haven't committed a crime, why are you pleading the Fifth Amendment?
Well, and to that point, some of the questions that he wouldn't answer, were you ever told to lie about the president's health? And did you ever believe President Biden was unfit to execute his duties? So what other avenues does the Oversight Committee have to try to get those answers from him?
That's a very good question. I mean, they can give him immunity and make him come testify, and if he refuses to testify after he has immunity, he doesn't face Fifth Amendment problems, then they can charge him with contempt of Congress and prosecute him, like the Biden regime did to Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro.
He's one example. There were many other parties involved here. If you believe that there was indeed a cover-up, and you know, the question is, how do we get to the bottom of what really happened? It does matter. It matters historically. It matters to people who voted for him. It matters to people that they were trying to get to vote for Kamala Harris as well. These are important issues. If you have people surrounding a president and covering up something as important as his mental health, how do we as the American people know that we would get the answers that we so deserve?
Yeah, this is the biggest, most dangerous fraud imaginable. You have a president, his wife, his family, his doctors, his advisors lying to the American people about his mental fitness to do the job. We saw at the debate he was clearly not fit to do the job. Joe Biden clearly was not running this country, so who was?
Yeah.
And his team was preparing that he might have to be in a wheelchair. So making foreign policy decisions. Mike Davis, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.